Unsurprisingly, the Nerd and Tie podcast is part of the Nerd and Tie podcast network. For more podcasts, from actual play to true crime to witchcraft, just go to nerdandtie.com or join our Discord by going to nerdandtie.com/Discord. Did you know you could sponsor Nerd and Tie? That's right. For just $20, we'd say your name here. We'd say something nice about you, and maybe, once everyone's vaccinated, we'll high-five your mom. Just go to nerdandtie.com and click on the sponsor information for more. Or you can contribute to our legal fund by going to gofundme.com/nerdandtie. On this episode of Nerd and Tie, you're going to get my review of the Snyder Cut. Zack Snyder also called out alt-right YouTubers, Geeks and Gamers. Falcon and the Winter Soldier has started, and we have some opening thoughts at least. And could we have cons before the end of the year? Yes? No? Maybe so? All that on this episode of Nerd and Tie. Welcome to Nerd and Tie, the only podcast on the internet with a dress code. I am one of your hosts, Trae Dorn. Joining me, as always, is the phenomenal Genproc.
What up?
And the wondiferous Nick Izumi.
I am alive.
Smelling like a rose that somebody gave you on your birthday deathbed?
Yeah, I'm gonna... Nah, maybe not. Nah.
It's a serious question. All right, so
it is. I know.
it's certainly been a month. I'm out here quoting grunge rock songs of 30 years ago.
I'm feeling like a grunge rock song of 30 years ago.
As you should.
I
just grabbed a cable for later, and I don't know if I grabbed the right one. I guess we'll find out when I do the thing. Anyways.
We're so professional.
I gotta tell you, like, ever since I rearranged my desk, I have just completely destroyed any semblance of organization I had here.
Yep.
That is... Okay, that's this cable. Would have been way easier if I'd done that one, but alright.
On this episode of Trae's Desk Adventures.
All right, so yeah, it's been quite the month, and I guess we should maybe get started with our first topic, and that is, lo and behold, the Snyder Cut came out and exists, and that's boy-oh is it exciting, and I watched it. On Saturday. So I offered to my wife, said, hey, look, I need to watch this thing. I'm willing to watch this on my own. Like, without you. You don't have to see it. And she looked at me and said, no, I want to see the Snyder Cut. And I'm like, okay. And then it was like 3 o'clock on Saturday. And I'm like, okay, hon, if we want to watch anything else besides this today, we have to start the Snyder Cut now.
Yeah.
And so we did. And so the movie is just over 4 hours long.
Oof.
And
no movie needs to be that long. Sorry, I need to say that.
So it took us about 4.5, 5 hours to get through it because we had to take breaks and pause and then we ordered dinner and but we made it through the whole thing in effectively one sitting. And that certainly was a thing I watched. All right, so just to start out because I know that some of our listeners liked this movie, and I don't want to spend this whole time shitting on it. So let's be really clear. This was a better, more coherent film than Joss Whedon's release. And there are some very good things that happened with this movie. There are important scenes that they put back in, involving Cyborg that I think were really important. Like the entire when I left Justice League, when I watched it in theaters, the Joss Whedon cut, my reaction was there's all this connection of Cyborg to the mother box. Why does the ending not feel like he's important to be there? Like that Superman just takes care of everything. Like that was my impression of the film the first time I saw it. And you know what? That is the biggest thing that this version fixes. Cyborg, besides being more integral to the whole story as a whole, is vital to the end. Like his inclusion in the finale is he plays a role that no one else could in that scene. And so it's very much very
You guys,
I don't know what
if you guys are hearing that, it's the goddamn street sweeper.
Okay, okay, so it'll go away. So and we don't edit this show, so that's just getting left in.
Yeah.
The streets. Okay, so
I flipped it off, which you couldn't hear, but you can imagine.
And so, like, I will say, the Cyborg stuff was really good that they included. I will say that I don't like certain things they did with Cyborg. Cyborg has ungodly powers in this movie. We're gonna go full spoiler here. I mean, I don't feel like it's. There will be spoilers in this. I don't think that there's any major plot. There are no major plot differences from the version of the movie you saw in like 2017, was it? So I don't feel too bad. But I'm not going to bother censoring anything because if you've seen that movie, you know what's going to happen. This movie does a much better job with Steppenwolf as making him a character in the film. Steppenwolf and they, because they added in scenes of like Darkseid, and like his communications with Apocalypse, like Steppenwolf is a better villain in this cut. Cyborg's backstory is better. That's the good part. This movie is so visually bland. It's like, let me tell you, Snyder's. So it's like a funeral drone. It's like a dirge, this film. It is a single emotional tone for 4 hours. 4 emotionally draining hours. The best way I can explain it is like, so like I never even like, and I can handle that with Snyder's film when it's like 2 hours long, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's, you know the Gordon Lightfoot song, the Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
Okay, so for 6 minutes, that song is fine, right? But
Yeah.
But if you've ever really paid attention to that song musically, it is one looping melody for the whole thing without break. Dun 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 dun. And then sometimes you get the dun 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 at the end of the phrase instead. But it's that for 6 minutes. And my brother, one of my brother's friends growing up, ended up working in a bar for a while, and he just grew to hate this song. He was a musician. And he grew to hate this song working in this bar because it was, the Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald was on the jukebox, and the clientele of this place when drunk liked to play that song, and he would hear the song like 8 to 10 times a day, and just hated it so much because that song is fine for 6 minutes, but for like an hour, you want to kill yourself. Like, it's just...
Yeah.
And I guess that when I looked at the runtime, like, and again, I should clarify, I have not watched this film yet.
I'm the only one of us who has.
As a person who has spent a disproportionate amount of my time on the internet shitting on Zack Snyder, I do feel like I'm not going to cast any aspersions on the movie because I don't feel like I would be informed, and people who I respect and like have told me that it's pretty watchable. But I will say that I think it shows good directing and good editing is sometimes knowing what to keep and what not to keep. And I just can't imagine justifying 4 hours.
Well, it's
I can't imagine justifying
the biggest
that.
problem this film has is just some. So there are some scenes that are included in this film that, you know what? I'm like, no, there's a reason this scene was cut. Like, there's a scene with Barry Allen, where he's like applying for a job at a pet store, and like, they introduce the character who they never name her on screen, but is clearly like we know is supposed to be Iris. And like the slow motion with the thing, and like it's the hot dog scene. And if you've ever seen the movie, you'll know why it's called. Why I think of it as the hot dog scene. It is 100% unnecessary. Like, it does not need to be in this movie. It is like this scene does not need to be there. Like, there are additional Aquaman scenes that are added, and don't get me wrong, I love Jason Momoa, but we didn't. You know, Aquaman works in the original film. Like, you know, he's a guy, you get his powers right away in the first scene that you meet him, and then he shows up later, and that's all you need, right? Like, you know who this guy is. You don't need, like, it's with the Flash, like, I'm sorry, but, like, pretty much everyone knows who the Flash is at this point, even though he hadn't had his own movie before Justice League. Like, he runs fast. His dad's in jail. Welcome to the Flash. Like,
I was about to say, like, even just from the trailer, I could tell that they almost, and this is kind of a recurring problem with the DCEU movies, is that they assume that you already know the characters from other media. And, like, just from having watched like, not even counting my comic books, like, just from having watched the TV show, I'm like, oh, okay, they're going with the status quo from the first season of the TV show. Okay.
Yeah. Whereas someone like me who doesn't have that pre-existing knowledge, like,
yeah,
I would have no idea who these people are and what's going on. Like, I'd care even less.
Yeah, well, and I think that counterpoints the Cyborg stuff. Like, we need the Cyborg stuff because he's central to the plot, and he's like, while Teen Titans is like, you know, was a big TV show for a certain generation, and Teen Titans Go for, like, the fact is Cyborg's a much less well-known character and especially within the context of this film, the connection to the Mother Box is not like a central part of Cyborg in anything else. You know what I mean?
Isn't that like a New 52 thing, if I'm not mistaken?
Well,
it may be. I think
it may be. I honestly am not familiar with his appearance, but my point is that, like, that is something that even me, a person who has read comics most of their life, would need to be reminded of, because, like, that's not a part of a lot, like, the versions of Cyborg that I had encountered, because I also stopped reading DC Comics before the New 52.
It's definitely not from the George Perez
right
like original version of him.
No,
it's a recent thing, but
right.
Yeah.
But so my point is, like, yeah, that needs explanation, that needs hooks. But Aquaman, all you really need for his involvement in the finale for the later acts, all you really need to know is that he's super strong and talks to fish. Like,
he's a talented swimmer.
Yeah. I mean, like, you get all of that from, like, oh, he's Aquaman. Like we didn't need the add-in scene about him getting his mother's trident from Willem Dafoe. Like, that was unnecessary.
But it helps set up the Aquaman movie
that came out already.
All right, 2 years ago. Never mind.
Right, and you know what? Aquaman did fine without that setup.
I mean, yeah, that's true. Like, I don't, like, we have the Aquaman movie came out, and you didn't need. Case in point, I still haven't seen the Justice League.
Okay,
and
so you haven't seen either version.
Worked fine without it.
Like, there's lots of changes. Like, in Joss's version of the Justice League in the Whedon cut, there's a civilian town near where the end battle's happening, and the Flash and Superman are evacuating people. In this version, it's explicitly like an abandoned, deserted, like a Pripyat-like town that there's no one living there in this version. So, they do weird stuff, like the inclusion of Martian Manhunter is neat, but, like, when you think about his appearance, it literally doesn't make sense. Like, So, in the original cut, Lois has gone back to work in the original cut, and she has a conversation with Martha. I almost said Martha Wayne, Martha Kent, at the Daily Planet. In this version, Lois is not going back to work and is moping in her apartment and going to the memorial of Superman like every day or something. And she gets a visit from who she thinks is Martha Kent, and then she leaves and turns out to be Martian Manhunter. There's no, what was Martian Manhunter's plan? Like,
why is John?
Why is he talking
visiting Lois?
And talking?
That makes no sense.
It doesn't make sense. When Lois shows up after Superman's resurrected in the Whedon cut, she's there because Batman brought her there. Like, Bruce thought ahead and brought her there, and so it makes sense. Like, it's planned. In this, she's just going back to the memorial again, another day. But she has put her press badge on because, thanks to her conversation with Martha, she's decided to go for who she thought was Martha. She decided to go back to work. She hasn't gone back to work yet, and her going back to work would have nothing to do with her movement throughout the film. It doesn't hold water.
I love Lois Lane, and even after shitting so much on Snyder, I don't want to be unfair to this movie, but he has never really done Lois Lane any favors, and I'm not optimistic about that.
He doesn't know what to do with Superman either. So Superman is a MacGuffin for him, not a character. True. And I want to say, I want to be clear, I'm complaining about all these things. This is a better movie than Joss Whedon's version of the movie. Like, I'm complaining about things that are slightly worse than the Snyder Cut, but as a whole, this is a more coherent film. Another problem this movie has, though, is that there are just scenes that go too long. Like,
you mean the kind of thing that, like, if you had an editor, they'd be like, okay, this served its purpose, let's make it shorter so that the movie isn't 4 hours.
There's a scene. So Gen and Nick have not seen this movie yet. I have.
Sorry,
I sent them a little gift set I made that you can find on my Tumblr. And I want to ask you guys, what do you think is happening here?
Okay, so to explain to the listeners, the gift set.
It's the image on this episode. If you go to nerdandtie.com and look at the preview image, that's the.
But to describe it, it's a lady on the shores of a rocky, like, there's like a few buildings. It's the ocean. There's lots of rocks, and she's sniffing a sweater.
Yeah.
Deeply.
And her mascara is like bleeding. Looks like a raccoon. I'm sorry,
And is therefore she's very sadly and deeply sniffing a sweater, like inhaling the scent off of it. And it makes you think, like, oh, whoever owns that sweater, like, must be dead or like, off to die.
Is it me stealing Lin-Manuel Miranda's laundry?
First off, I will say the sweater. The only clue I'm going to give you is the sweater does belong to Aquaman.
Oh, okay.
So it makes me think, like, oh, Aquaman, like, it seems like it's like maybe it's his love interest and he's off to fight the big battle and he might die.
That doesn't make me feel better.
That's the only logical thing Mike can think of.
Gen, have you seen? Gen, did you see the Joss Whedon cut of this movie?
No.
Okay, so I'm the only one who's seen either version of either version of Justice League. Okay. So there's a scene early on in Justice League, which is, I think, better done in the Joss Whedon cut. But there's not it's the same takes that have just been re-edited. So it's an editing issue for this, where Batman goes to find Aquaman in this, and I think it's in the trailer, this Icelandic village where apparently there's Aquaman's supposed to show up and help this village every winter with fish. It's a great scene where
what a nice dude.
Right. Well, it's a great scene in the movie in the original cut, and it's a decent scene in this one where I think it works better with the timing in the Whedon cut, but it's not. Most of the scene is still good in this, where Batman goes to this remote village and he's talking to the village leaders, and there's a translator who is Aquaman. Aquaman is pretending to be a local and is acting as the translator for Bruce Wayne in the village. And like it's a very funny scene. It's very good. But at the end of the scene, like they walk down to the beach, and Aquaman takes off his sweater and dives into the water and swims away. Bruce walks back through the crowd and goes back because Aquaman has said no to him, turned him down, and swum off. Bruce walks away. Then the scene keeps happening.
Oh,
and this woman and two other women, blonde women with raccoon mascara, start singing an a cappella song in 3-part harmony in Icelandic, and she walks down to the beach and she picks up his sweater and she sniffs the sweater, and there's this long shot of like behind her facing out to the ocean, and I shit you not, this is like over 2 minutes of movie.
And
Batman is gone. Aquaman is gone. The scene is over.
Gone. And he probably just has said, like, hi to her.
Right. She's not an important figure in Aquaman. It's not like when they put in Willem Dafoe or Mormera, like, it's like, no, none of this shit. Like, she's not a character.
I
just
get
some
it. Like,
rando fangirl.
Like, Aquaman's great. Jason Momoa is very attractive, but like, I'm sorry, my first thought, if I see Jason Momoa throw his sweater off, my first thought is gonna be that's gonna be stanky. That's gonna smell bad.
The sweater
no
sniffer.
Way.
We get the sweater sniffer for no good reason. While the other two are still, while she's doing this, the other two are still singing the whole time. So you have this weird, like, Icelandic a cappella folk song happening. And let me tell you, the soundtrack of this movie is so fucking weird. Like, there's this, like, vocal line that, like, will play half the time. The scenes are too long. Like, the destruction of the Thermosphere Temple, like, adds all this stuff, but actually, like, makes the scene feel less intense. Like, the original chase from, like, when, Hippolyta's running with the mother box away from, Steppenwolf, you feel like he's right behind her throughout the original cut of that scene. And this one, she's like just stopping, talking to people. Like, what is Steppenwolf doing? Like, it's
it's a video game. She hasn't walked far enough to trigger the Steppenwolf QuickTime event. So, like, as soon as she walks too far, that triggers it, and then you gotta press A again.
So look, it's like, while I think the climax of this film is so much better, and the inclusion of Cyborg shit is so much better, that this is a better movie, there are so many new problems. Like, and don't get me so the scene at the end that they play, of which would have, like, so they do the scene that would have led into Ben Affleck's Batman movie that's not happening, with, Deathstroke on the boat with Lex Luthor, but that's in the original version of the film. And then you get, like, Batman has another future vision dream.
No, that was the worst part of Batman v Superman.
And it's literally they shot this is a new scene they shot for the Snyder Cut.
Oh,
and you get a little bit of Deathstroke, like, but you get the scene with Jared Leto's Joker, and that's when Batman tells Joker, "I'm gonna fucking kill you." I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. That's the second F-bomb in the movie, which is what gives it an R rating, because you only get one in PG-13.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, technically there's more blood in this cut, but I really, really think that, like, the only thing that makes it R, the only thing that, like, you couldn't have squeezed by the board is just that there's a second F-bomb in the film. And it's just useless. Joker makes a joke about reach around, that Batman can't kill him because no one else would give him reach around. That's in there. And it's
so I guess I kind of want to ask.
But thankfully, we live in a society. It's just in the trailer. It's not in the film at all. It's not canon in any official canon. The Joker has not said it in official canon yet.
So like that kind of leads me. I need to ask this, and I know that, and you kind of implied it. So maybe this is a repetitive question. But so basically, did it need this R rating, or did it get an R rating because someone wanted to be an edgy boy?
I think they wanted to be an edgy boy. I don't think it needed an R rating. You do get a.
Okay.
It's honestly, here's my thought. What Joss Whedon and Zack Snyder have proven is that this could have been a good movie, but neither one of them got this shit across the finish line. It's if you take the Snyder Cut, you could probably edit it down to a great 2.5-hour movie. Maybe not a great one, but a decent 2.5-hour movie. And am I glad they put this out? Yes, because it is more narratively fulfilling than Whedon's version by far, by millennia. Like, and if you had told me that they're going to build the rest of the they're not going to, but if you told me they were going to build the rest of the DCEU off of this movie, I would have been fine with that. Like, they're not going to. It's Warner Brothers has made it pretty clear that, like, no, we're not changing direction because we gave you this. It's we gave you this because you asked for it enough times, and we have nothing else to put out because of a pandemic. Like, it's so. I mean, I guess my thought is that the Snyder Cut was worth it. Like, let me tell you my problem with this film. Like, there's so many times I'm like, there's duplicated scenes that, like, reestablish information we already have. Also, Cyborg is way too powerful in this. Like, so they introduce, like, all this stuff, some of the backstory of Cyborg is, like, they give him, like, he has, like, technically access to every computer on Earth. Like, in, Silas, who's played by, I think, Joe Martin in this, his Cyborg's dad, like, there's a recorded thing he leaves on a tape for his son, and, like, he listens to it. It's like, you have the power to launch all the world's nukes if you wanted to. I'm like, why would you give that to him? Don't give anybody that.
He doesn't need that responsibility.
But, like, he has access to, like, all the financial data of the whole world, in which he, like, walks into, like, this visualization of a bank, which has a bear and a bull fighting outside of it. And, like, I'm not kidding. And, like, he gives more money to one lady, but he has, like, access to everybody's bank account across the world. He could collapse capitalism. He literally could pull the ending to Fight Club out. Like, it's like, you have so much power, and you did, like, one little thing. Great. All the other starving people are screwed, but one lady who, like, had problems, you did something nice there. Why would you want to...
To be fair, this is Zack Snyder. I don't think the idea of capitalism not existing is something he can imagine.
Yeah, I don't think he'd even consider it. I'm just like... It's so frustrating. Like, but I'm just like, just don't give a character that kind of power. Like, you didn't have to walk through that door. Like, that's definitely not plot required that he have, like, it's the access to the nukes also. I'm just like, why would you want any single person to have the ability to destroy the world? This is just like a supervillain introduction. I feel like we need to stop Cyborg. Like, oh, and he's so, like, Ray Fisher is a perfectly fine actor. I have no criticism of any of the actors in this film. I actually want to be really clear. Like, I don't even have a criticism for Jared Leto's Joker at the end. He actually gives his best performance as Joker. He actually gives a good performance as Joker. It's not good lines.
No, I believe you. I'm impressed.
Yeah, no. But Ray Fisher's Cyborg is just so depressed to be alive. He's just so unhappy to be alive. And when we compare it to, like, between Teen Titans, you know, Cyborg, or like Cyborg on Doom Patrol is a guy who's unhappy about a bunch of shit, but is still, like,
but he
fun.
likes being a superhero.
Yeah,
to his credit.
Meanwhile, and also, I just got to say this time and time again, like, Cyborg looks 1,000,000 times better on Doom Patrol than he does in this movie because they did his costume practically. And I know that, like, I think his costume on Doom Patrol looks great, and that's what a human cyborg should look like. The CGI cutscene character that they did to Ray Fisher is a disservice to the character and to the actor.
I agree with you in that regard. Hey, can I point something out though that
Yeah.
that you've mentioned that I need to get off my chest though?
Sure.
Uh, I still think like between Justice League and the Snyder Cut, I still think it's very strange that they picked Steppenwolf as the main bad guy.
Well,
Like if you were to pick a character from the New Gods like pantheon of the Darkseid crew, like it's such a bizarre decision. It's your first ever big budget Justice League movie, and you're gonna pick like Gary from accounting.
well, okay, so I think it works in the Snyder Cut. So Steppenwolf is like clearly an underling, and you have communications between him and the like other like I forget the name of the guy who actually talks to, but then who's working for Darkseid, and it's clear that Snyder wanted to do a trilogy of Justice League films. So the entire concept was that like Darkseid would be the final bad guy in the final movie, and this is supposed to be literally like the weakest underling who would be sent there. Oh, and by the way, the anti-life equation is just kind of etched across the Earth's surface, and apparently Darkseid just forgot what planet that was etched on.
What?
Yeah. Even though he
That's
knew the
some Michael Bay Transformers bullshit. I'm sorry. I gotta...
Well, I mean, the mother boxes were already some Michael Bay Transformers bullshit, but yeah, go off, I guess.
true. Sorry, also true. I get it. I get that they want to start with an underling or whatever, but like it's part of my problem with the whole we're just going to assume that we're going to get sequels.
Well, yeah.
So we're not going to start with an iconic villain. We're going to start with a character that even I, as someone who likes DC Comics, cannot bring myself to give half a crap about.
Right.
I'm sorry. DC has so many great characters. Jack Kirby created so many great new gods, and you went with fucking Steppenwolf.
Yeah, I honestly think it works as a film because I'll tell you the truth. I wouldn't have recognized. Like, I read a lot of Batman growing up, but I didn't read a lot of Justice League or Superman stuff growing up. So I don't know the like. I'm not as familiar with the kinds of villains who would have required a team in the in DC. Like, I knew the Marvel stuff, but DC was something where I only dipped into a couple of books growing up, and then I walked away for so long that like I knew who Darkseid was.
Mm-hmm.
But
and I get not wanting to blow the Darkseid load first thing.
But I think that like so the way I will say the way it works in the Snyder Cut, the ending is so differently set up that it implies like that literally Darkseid was about to walk through. So it's like the looming threat of Darkseid throughout it. I think Steppenwolf is a perfectly effective villain. I think that whoever you picked, most audiences weren't going to know because, like, audiences didn't know who Thanos was until they set him up in the films, in the Marvel movies.
And I agree with that. I'm just like off the top of my head, I honestly would have gone with like Calabac.
I don't know who that is either.
He's Darkseid's kid. So like long story short, really overly complicated Jack Kirby bullshit aside, he's Darkseid's kid. And like
I'm just saying
that has more dramatic potential to me.
I think that's I'm going to step in here and defend it just to say that, and again, as a person, I think it really works well. Like Steppenwolf, actually, his motivations and as a character works. That's like one of the few things that I think worked really well in the Snyder Cut. So I think he was a terrible villain in the Whedon version only because he wasn't a character in the Whedon cut. In this version, he is a character. He has he's pretty much like kind of it's fun. It's a little bit fun because he's like pretty much it seems that all the new gods think he's shit, like that he's terrible. And he's disgraced, and like he keeps asking to talk to Darkseid and getting told no.
Okay, no, I mean, like, that works. I'm just, where I'm coming at it from, again, I haven't seen the film, so I'm not, it's not a fair place, but, like, let's say you're doing a movie about something similarly iconic. Let's say you're doing a movie about the Beatles, and you want the climax to be like a really major concert. Are you going to do the Ed Sullivan Show when they debuted in the US, or are you going to do when they were doing dive bars? Because that's what it feels like to me.
Well, you do dive bars. That's a much more entertaining movie. There's nothing interesting about them once they're successful.
But that's...
You might end.
I mean, yes, but like, do you want to end it on? And then they were at a dive bar. Not that they eventually became successful. Just nope. They just did a...
Well, I think I gotta say the way that it's set up in the Snyder Cut is it feels like you're getting to like you would be ending the movie at them being booked on the Ed Sullivan Show, which would be a narratively fulfilling thing. And that's sort of what you're getting here, is that for like the Steppenwolf almost in the Snyder Cut, Steppenwolf almost wins. Like, and it's a very different ending than the Joss Whedon cut version. Because means nothing to me. I haven't seen the Joss Whedon one either. So I know, and that's like here. So you're just gonna have to trust me that actually that is narratively fulfilling in the Snyder Cut, and that's like actually the part of the film. Like, I will say, there's about a half an hour of this film that I was 100% there for, and it's the climax, and I think that's why people like this film. So like when people talk about how they like the Snyder Cut, and like it's because they're remembering the half hour before the stupid epilogue that drags on forever and you get the future scene. The half hour going to the climax and like around it and like that final battle and like that. Like some of the fight scenes feel like get boring in this movie because they take forever. Like there's like, I have thoughts about so many cuts they could have made. But the final climax is really good. And I think that it wouldn't have worked if you had a more important villain as the main villain. And
okay.
Yeah,
that's fair. I don't know. It's just I'm just in this weird corner where I'm like, I feel like the problem is, Nick, is that you're too familiar with the source material, where you have familiarity with things that no audience is gonna know or give a shit about. I have to I gotta be clear. You know things that characters who you think are more prominent are equally obscure to the target audience. So it literally, I think Zack Snyder picked them because they could put cool horns on them. I get that. I understand that. It's just kind of like I'm just in this corner being like, you don't know if you're going to get a sequel.
Yeah.
Like,
well, to be fair, when they were scripting this movie, it was originally supposed to have a sequel already ordered, and then they canceled that while they were already in production. Remember, it was supposed to be Justice League Part 1 and Part 2.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And so they already had. They were.
You're not going to get a sequel. I don't know. Go big.
Okay. Anyways, so I think that wraps up. So the review of the Snyder Cut is it's a better movie than the first edit of this film. It is still too much shit has been thrown in here. We got kitchen sinked, and there's a creepy Icelandic woman on a beach sniffing a sweater. While her two sisters sang weird folk music. Well, she and her sisters sing weird folk music. I'm assuming they're sisters. They look alike. They dress alike. They walk together. They are of no narrative significance. And there's a long shot of the back of her head that I didn't, show you guys. But it's certainly, as she looks out to sea wistfully at someone who Aquaman doesn't even think to mention in his movie, which takes place right after this. Oh, I will say that. So the funny thing is that we did sit down, and I actually hadn't seen Aquaman yet.
Oh my god!
So we watched this, and then we finished it, and then Krista was like, "I want to watch Aquaman. We haven't seen that yet." And then we watched Aquaman. So we watched Aquaman immediately following the Snyder Cut.
Oh,
I love Aquaman,
and it was amazing.
I love Aquaman.
It was amazing, and it was like there's color. Yeah, because Snyder slapped his desaturated brown all over this version of the movie. So it was just like, oh my god, that octopus is playing those drums. And
the color palette's great. It's big, weird, and goofy.
Here's the thing.
I love Aquaman.
Here's the question about the octopus and Aquaman. And this was something that, so apparently being able to talk to the fish is a very rare thing, right? Like, they established that in the film. How'd they get the octopus to play drums? No one can talk with him.
He's a guy. He's he speaks the same language. He's a guy.
Okay, because there's nothing to tell us that. We came up with a whole backstory about an octopus who started showing up at parties and playing drums, and no one could understand him. But then, like, doing that, and he's like gigging, and then the whole thing with his album release part. It's Chris that came up with a whole bit that was very funny, and I don't remember enough of it to retell it, but it was great.
I haven't read as much Aquaman, but my friends who are big Aquaman readers assure me that he's a guy, like he's an existing character, and they were very happy to see him.
I've only read like 2 issues. I've only read like 2 issues of Aquaman ever, and it was in like the early 90s. So that I read them. I don't know. I don't even remember if the issues were from then. So yeah, it's that. So we should probably move on to the next story, which still involves Zack Snyder and the Snyder Cut, because one of the things that Zack Snyder did right before the movie came out was he was obviously out there raising funds for like mental health charities. You know, because we all know the story about, you know, why he, or at least the official reason why he left the film after, you know, one of his kids committed suicide.
Heart still goes out to him and his family. No one should have to go through that. No one.
So he appeared on this live stream, which actually was run by one of the contributors to a certain YouTube channel, Geeks and Gamers, stylized Geeks plus Gamers. And when he came out, well, I'm just going to play the clip of what he said on this live stream. Oh, wait. I realized I didn't plug the actual iPad into the mixing board.
While you're plugging it in, do you want me to quick establish for the audience who Geeks plus Gamers are? Because
sure.
I think that's kind of, it makes this there's a bit more catharsis when you know who they are.
Yeah.
So, Geeks plus Gamers are one of the YouTube pages / web groups that really, really was pushing for the release the Snyder Cut thing, and their contributors are extremely far right. Most of them are alt-righters. They think any depiction of people who aren't white is somehow offensive. They have this weird persecution complex about queer people of color, women being on screen. They're very toxic.
They constructed an insane narrative about how the left didn't want the Snyder Cut to come out, which is
I saw that.
like bizarre because like,
you know what that. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, you know what that is though. It's part of it is this narrative, and I'm not going to name names, but a mutual friend of ours fell victim to this narrative in the last year. But because it's what they do is they pander to the awkward nerd set and convince them that the left is trying to take your toys away.
Yeah, I think Thought Slime has a good video about weaponized nostalgia.
Perfect. Thought Slime has a great video. Yeah.
Yeah, and that largely talks about the quartering, but these guys fall into the same camp as that.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's convincing people that the left wants to take your toys away, and then getting them riled up about something unimportant, really, so that they'll get angry at the left. That's always what it is.
Yeah, and meanwhile, no one on the left, nobody had a guy like the response. Like, the response from left wing people I know was either they wanted the Snyder Cut or they didn't care about the Snyder Cut. And then there were people who were like, that doesn't technically exist. And it didn't. They had to shoot new things. They're like, it's just a work cut. And Snyder wouldn't let them release the work cut. They tried. But anyway,
I'm only, as a leftist, I'm only a little sad that I didn't get the catharsis of, oh, the movie didn't actually turn out to be good. But even then, after this news that you're about to share, I'm now willing to just sit down and enjoy the movie at some point because I know a little bit about Zack Snyder now.
Yeah, so Zack Snyder, went on this live stream again, which was technically actually hosted by a contributor to Geeks and Gamers. And this is what happened once they brought him out.
There he is. Hey guys, how you doing? How's everybody doing?
Good.
Just a quick thing before we get started. I know that on our donation page, we still have the Geeks and Gamers logo. I just want to say that I really, we talked about this, and we're really not affiliated with Geeks and Gamers as far as I'm concerned, and I really just want to make that clear. And I also want to just say, in light of recent events, I think we really, if Justice League teaches us anything, it's about coming together, and there's no room for hate. And I just think that it's important. It's an important message. And of course, as the father of the Asian children, it really hits close to home for me. And
so, of course,
all right, sorry, I was grabbing that off of someone else's video about this and not the actual stream because I don't want to give them money. So
I love that he just comes right out and disavows them.
And they're and members of it are on the stream. It's on their. It's great. It's just, and it just disavowed them to their face. I love it. And obviously, this is in the wake of the horrific, racially motivated Atlanta shootings, of the massage parlor workers, where a number of Asian American women were shot, and it's horrible, and it's like. But it, it's like,
it feels pretty good though to know that Zack Snyder, he might, if going by his movies, I'm still going to assume he's not a very intelligent person, but at least he's not evil.
So he's
that's a small
win. I take issue with the Ayn Randian philosophy inherent in his work, and isn't he doing an Atlas Shrugged movie?
He wants to do a Fountainhead movie, but he can't get he can't get a studio to sign off on it.
Sorry,
he keeps saying he wants to, but it hasn't moved forward.
Yeah, but at least it turns out that he's just personally a moral person. He reminds me of are the guys who used to call themselves libertarians 30 years ago, who obviously there were still completely overtly racist people under that label then, but who only supported economic policies that hurt that backed white supremacy, not necessarily realizing that they directly did. I feel like he's the kind of guy who you could fix.
This is not. I'm not never gonna give him a free pass because he's done some problematic as heck stuff with his movies.
Oh god, don't even.
And I still think he doesn't come off as a particularly smart director, but I can't not respect the man for going right onto the stream run by these alt-right dipshits and just crapping on them there after they spent years doing nothing but kiss his ass. And
well, and it also he's not a shitty person.
Yeah, exactly. And some of their reactions afterward, they were upset that he's not a shitty person.
Yeah.
It was, oh, look at him virtue signaling. Yeah, him defending the Asian community when he has an Asian daughter. That's so shitty of him.
They call any time anyone isn't a shitty person virtue signaling. If you say don't push old ladies on the ground, they'll be like virtue signaler. If you're you shouldn't kick a dog, they'd be like virtue signaler.
It's true.
Trying to get in good with puppies. I don't need to try to get in good with puppies. Puppies love me.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything. They call anytime anything that's not a selfish act, they call virtue signaling.
And admittedly, seeing Snyder come out and do that turned there was part of me that was really annoyed that these whiny fan brats basically mobilized and bullied perfectly nice people into making this movie happen.
Yeah.
But seeing Zack Snyder disavow the worst parts of that fandom
to their face,
right to their face, it wasn't a way that he could hand wave it. He did it right to their face. It kind of left me spending the rest of the weekend being like, hey, the people who are enjoying this movie, have fun. Good for you.
Yeah, right?
I'm really happy for you. Maybe I'll watch it even.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like Superman. I like the Flash. You know.
I just break it into chunks. It's a lot to watch at once. I think this would have been better released as a web series because it's just so long, and it's
4 hours
whole
is
day.
a long.
It's so long.
But yeah, good for Zack Snyder. He gets points in my book.
Mm-hmm.
That's real cool.
Even if he put the sweater sniffer in there.
Even if he put the sweater sniffer in there.
Snyder's sweater sniffer is definitely the name of this episode. That is...
Oh, man.
Acceptable.
Oh, okay. So
even if he's the worst possible Superman director, I'm still, you know what? He gets points this time.
If anything, it makes the Tyler Hoechlin series look better.
That's true. I can't even complain about that because I'm really enjoying the Tyler Hoechlin show. It's real good. It's real good, you guys.
If you ever want to see him with the shirt off, go watch Teen Wolf. First season, they give that shirt off whenever they possibly can.
Doing God's work.
No, I'm saying. I mean, say what you want about Chris Evans, but Tyler Hoechlin has America's ass. If you watch that first episode, there's a shot in the opening of the first episode of Superman and Lois where you get a profile shot and the cape flies up and you just see that round bubble right on the back of Superman. It is. I cannot. I had seen it before, in earlier stuff in that costume when he was on Supergirl, but it just reminds you of that man's ass is just.
It's true.
It's amazing.
Hey, speaking of America's ass.
Good. Yeah, no, so to dip back over to another superhero thing released this last week on a streaming platform that is owned by a parent company of a comic book company. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier premiered on the last week, and obviously, so we're recording this because we release this show monthly, and we're recording this on March 22nd, and so obviously only the first episode's aired when we release this episode, and so far it's good. It's so different. It's just funny to watch this after WandaVision, to go back to conventional Marvel universe.
I'm mostly enjoying the setup. I'm super uncomfortable with one of the lines in the show, and I have torn just one throwaway line from the first episode to shreds. Because I am a pretty extremely left-wing person.
Oh, I don't know what we're talking about.
Okay, so when they're introducing the Flag Smashers,
okay,
there's a scene in the first episode. Sam Wilson is talking to one of his contacts,
right?
And this character says to him, "These are the Flag Smashers. They want a united world without borders."
Oh,
and they don't say anything else, and I'm like, no, I want that. Just a second,
right? No. Right, but it's okay. So,
what is this, Metal Gear?
Well, okay. So here's the thing. That made perfect sense to me, though, knowing that we're literally talking about two people working for the U.S. military having a conversation with each other. But of course, that's the point of view that they have.
I'm just yes, that's the point of view they have. It's just I'm hoping that the main moral ethos of the show isn't going to lean into that direction and talk to us about how important borders are and leave me just.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
I really hope not.
I don't.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking. I think that while that is, I think that the motivation of who's actually running that group is going to turn out to be different, and that it's just using people to get them to, with that as the selling point. We know Baron Zemo's showing up,
Well, yeah, I know that, and but I'm just hoping that they don't play that motivation unironically, and maybe we'll get like a realistic, fascist co-opting populist talking points to move their thing along. But also, that seems like a lot to ask from the Disney Corporation, so who knows? That said, there are a lot of things I like. Sorry to I don't want to spoil too much, but I will say, as a longtime John Walker hater, it feels great. It feels great
that everybody hates him.
Seeing the internet react with the same nausea to U.S. agents that I have every time I see U.S. agents, and every time I've seen U.S. agents since I was about 13.
Yeah,
like I've hated that guy forever, and seeing everyone else just.
I like John Walker as a character in the sense that I like reading stories that involve him. I didn't, I wouldn't want to hang out with the guy.
I like stories that involve him. It's just most of them are the stories where Steve and Sam punch him.
I've got an issue of U.S. Agent of like his solo book somewhere in my closet. It's It's U.S. Agent. I love it. I love. He's the guy you love to hate.
I've like I said, I've never really liked U.S. Agent, so seeing the rest of the internet be like, yeah, screw that guy, it's been like, yep.
Well, the entire concept behind him is what if patriotism isn't good?
Remember that I'm going to describe a comic book run from the 80s, and I'm probably going to accidentally spoil some of the trajectory of the show. Sorry. Remember, U.S. Agent was introduced, like, during one of the many times that Captain America quit being Captain America in the comics in reaction to real-world political things. In this case, it was Iran-Contra.
Yeah, and that's when I know people involved with that. It's not the comic books. And he became Captain America at that point. He'd already been like Super Patriot, I think was his first name.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, the Super Patriot. He showed up as that, and then he became Captain America after when Steve quit being Captain America.
And then we got that really great and then it was a fun storyline because like what we now know as the U.S. Agent outfit was Steve's outfit at the time because he was calling himself just the Captain. And you had this, it was, you got to see like a Cap versus Cap fight, and it turned out that installing a right-leaning Captain America was something Nazis wanted all along. It was very cathartic.
Yeah, it's the entire concept behind his character is what if patriotism isn't good? And so I think I'm excited to see where the series goes. I know again hasn't gotten to watch any of it yet because of life, so we'll probably revisit this again in a month.
I'm sorry. I probably
we'll revisit it as more episodes come out. Like
we'll know a lot more. We'll have 4 more episodes before before we record again. So that's when we'll get to talk about the actual plot of the show. I mean, that's why like there isn't a lot of, but I will say it's nice. After like because WandaVision I loved it, but it was it like this,
so good.
But like. Half of WandaVision's run doesn't really feel like the MCU because it's the whole premise of the show, and it is great in its own set. But that's why like that the latter half of WandaVision plus this, it's just really nice to like be like I missed the MCU after not being in seeing it for a year.
But it's like, as opposed to the movies, it's kind of nice to get it in these like little bite-sized chunks of episodes, rather than like hours upon hours of like story being shoved onto you.
Well, it's because like especially with character, and I think this is going to be like the characters that they're doing in these. Like if you took a look at WandaVision, Bucky, Falcon, and then the Loki series, which is going to premiere later this year. These are all characters who, I mean, Loki more so than the other ones, like, they all show up in, like, the ensemble films, but not on their own. Like, it's, like, they show up in what would be in comics as just event comics, and you never get to read their individual issues. This is getting the issues. Like Thor gets his own movies, like, you know, and gets to stand away, but like the Captain America movies, starting really with Winter Soldier, like all the Captain America, like with the exception of the first Captain America movie, are all like big event things, like that drive the larger, like, you know, Winter Soldier has the whole Hydra reveal, you know, and has huge implications for other stuff. You know, Civil War is literally an Avengers film with Captain America's name on it.
Agreed.
It's so, like, when you take a look at the movies, and then obviously, you know, like Avengers, Age of Ultron is Avengers movie, and, you know, Infinity War and, you know, Endgame. So if you look at the appearances that like characters like Falcon and Bucky have gotten to be in, it's all like they've only gotten to be in event comics. And like, I mean, and again, like, you know, Wanda and the Vision start in Avengers Age of Ultron, and then like you only see them in big event movies. And so this, we're getting to see like the actual like character development for these people.
Yay.
And I think that's great. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see where this goes.
Everyone knows I'm big on Captain America books, especially, you know, the big spy stories and that sort of thing. And I'm hoping this is going to be my jam. It has all the indications it will be.
So yeah, we'll give a larger review once more of the episodes have aired in next month's episode. I think that's safe to say for me to toss that on the docket automatically. And so, we'll talk way more about it next episode, but so far with episode 1, we like it. Those of us who've seen it. As we're an hour in, we should move on to our last topic here. And that is, do we think we're going to be in conventions by the end of the year? Yay or nay? And that's
oh my god, something I can actually talk about.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, guys.
It's okay.
What are your thoughts?
Possibly. I think my answer is possibly.
Yeah.
It depends on a lot of different factors. Is the big overlying issue. I think what could happen a lot sooner are outdoor kind of craft fairy. I don't know if like really huge stuff like Ren fairs and amusement parks would come open, even though some of them are starting to, and I don't think that's a really good idea now, but just little old me. I think it's going to be a long time before like the super big conventions come back safely.
Yeah.
Just because of the number of people. I think smaller conventions could come back sooner since they are smaller, but I don't know. It's very much up in the air at this point.
I think it's all going to depend on the vaccine rates, right? Obviously,
exactly.
It's like I have my first. I have my vaccination appointment scheduled. My first dose I get on Thursday this week. I'm getting the Moderna vaccine, but like we're in Wisconsin. All three of us are in Wisconsin, and right now I'm eligible to get vaccinated because of health stuff. And there are frontline workers who get vaccinated, but like most people can't get vaccinated yet, aren't going to be vaccinated eligible in Wisconsin until like May 1st. Like my wife can't get vaccinated until May at the earliest.
I'm about to say, as a Medicare insurance person, it is my duty to guide people to treasures that I may never hold.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at right now.
I mean, yeah. So like, but here's the problem. So right now, all three vaccines are approved for adults. I can't remember if it's Pfizer or Moderna is approved down to like 16 years old is the youngest, but none of these have gone through pediatric testing. And so like most teenagers aren't eligible to be vaccinated. Like even when vaccines are eligible and we're able to start vaccinating the full adult population, the fact is that there aren't an approved vaccines for like kids. And so that's going to affect a lot of stuff. Like, It's like if people, like there are people who bring their kids to cons. Well, they can't safely if the kids aren't vaccinated. And if there's not an approved vaccine before the end of the year for those kids, that means that, you know, those people are going to stay home, or at least they should stay home. Like if you get and like teenagers, if they don't have, like, if they don't get the trials done for teenagers before conventions, that's like hell, man. That's like half the people at anime cons.
I would say my concern isn't will they open, it's should they open, because I feel like we're going to be getting some before the end of the year, but I don't think it's a good idea.
Sci-fi cons will be fine because they're young. I'm younger than people at sci-fi cons, and I'm 40.
Yeah. But no, I think you're right, especially because I'm looking at amusement parks as a model, and like some of them are already starting to open back up, and it's like, should they though? Should they?
I don't know. One thing I'm saying is that once cons open back up, no matter what, I'm still wearing a mask everywhere. Like, and I hope everybody else does. Because you know what? Like, I'll tell you, it's the most beautiful thing about this last year. I have many problems with 2020, but you know what I haven't? You know when the last time I got sick was? February 2020.
Right? Yeah, flu rates are like super down.
Yeah, because we're all wearing masks.
We're all wearing masks.
We're all wearing masks, and I love it.
I mean,
love it.
It's just like a good idea to keep the con crud away.
Yeah,
because I can't believe I let y'all breathe on
everyone on this call has had it. Everyone listening who has gone to a convention has had con crud after you've been to a convention.
Yeah,
like, it's a thing. And if there's something you can do to mitigate that a little bit, and maybe not make you feel so crappy after a convention, maybe we should do that. Good idea.
And also, frankly, y'all look way more attractive wearing masks. Like, all of you. Like, I know I look more attractive with a mask on. and no one can smell your breath.
Yeah. I mean, you should still take care of yourself.
Yes, you should.
Hygiene is a good thing, especially
I brush my teeth every night. But, you know, I'm just, that's my thought, is that I think there's a chance that cons aren't safe to go to till next year.
Yeah.
It's all going to depend. It's all going to depend on, like, when the pediatric vaccines get approved.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. Big time agreed.
So we don't have any mailbag this month, which I was disappointed because we got like the message pinged for the inbox, but it was just some spammer trying to sell us his company services.
Oh man!
Everybody wants to buy posts on our website. I'm just like,
I mean, were they good services?
No.
Was it like chicken?
No.
Is it like chicken nuggets?
But let me tell you, we put on our website that we do
chicken fritters.
So we put on our website on the fucking thing that we do not run sponsored posts. Do not contact about sponsored posts. Yeah, we get like the constant fucking sponsor. Oh, I said it twice. We're gonna get R-rated.
Oh no.
But that does bring us to the last part of our show, which is of course always the Vomit Hat Steve Challenge. And the Vomit Hat Steve Challenge is the part of the episode where I read part of a book to you, and the challenge to you, the listener, is to guess what book I'm reading from. If you guess correctly, you get included in our Hall of Awesome. The benefits of the Hall of Awesome are as follows. 1, I read your name aloud every episode. 2, I put your name on the website on a page that's really buried. And 3, again, I might high-five your mom if everyone's vaccinated. You don't know.
Big if.
Anyways, the current members of the Hall of Awesome are as follows. Arkham Zero, Rena Incenti, Cheesy McDamu, Krista, Slithery, Shameless Otaku, The Random Ramblings Man, Corefan, Capito, Chris Graham, Lillisaurus, Paper Godzilla, Cavsy, The Minnesota Librarian, Sean Orange, Keith Shuzuo, Sakura Sunset, Joel Kreisman, Patrick Delahanty, Wonderland Hearts, and Megsy Sass Council. And I am picking up the book that I have been reading for a while. I think this whole frickin' pandemic. No, I was reading a different one for a while. Okay. This is the line for this episode. When I entered the room, I threw myself onto Grace's bed, and it all came pouring out. If you know what book that's from, go to nerdandtie.com/contact. Click on the form form, fill it out, tell us. Or if you have anything else you'd like us to know, dream of, think of, do, just go to that form and tell us, and we will, probably read it on the show like people, like human beings, because that's what we do, I guess. Right?
I guess.
All right.
Think about it.
With that, I think it's time to call this episode square. I am, of course, Trae Dorn.
I'm sniffing Aquaman's sweater right now.
As soon as I was just thinking, as soon as conventions open back up, I am cosplaying the sweater sniffing lady, and nobody can stop me.
Okay. So what you'll need is me and Nick to also cosplay similar outfits to stand behind you and learn that Icelandic folk song.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're doing this.
I had my friend Sam has been has done an Aquaman costume on and off, and I've been threatening her to be Ocean Master at some point. So we need to coordinate this somehow.
Yes.
We will figure this out. We need blonde wigs. All right.
So dumb.
Someone get me an Arta coupon or something. All right. With that, it's time to probably run away.
A sweat.
Remember, you can always subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Google Play, on Spotify, anywhere that takes an RSS feed. You can subscribe to the show and listen to us every month, in your thing for free, because it's a podcast, and that's how podcasts work. At least they still do in 2021. Who knows? We're not those fancy pants guys on Luminary. Although you can subscribe to the show on Luminary if you use Luminary. I don't know why you use Luminary, because no one uses Luminary except for 5 people, and they subscribe to some. I don't know. What is the point of Luminary? Anyways, you should rate and review the show on those things too, because that helps boost engagement and help other people get subjected to whatever the hell you just listened to. Remember that Nerd and Tie podcast is, again, unsurprisingly, a part of the Nerd and Tie podcast network. A new show just launched on the network a couple weeks ago, and that is Poor Man's History, from the creative minds behind Cool and Unusual Punishment, where Jody and Tyler get drunk every 2 weeks and read each other weird stories from history. And sometimes history is just a few years ago, if you listen to the episode coming out this week. But
their first episode is something that I wrote one of my theses on in college, and it is excellent.
Yeah, it's
just saying.
So Cool and Unusual Punishment, for those of you who don't know, actually started out in this format and then moved into serious actual journalism. So they went, hey, we want to get drunk and tell each other weird stories, but we've built too much of a brand on actual journalism. So they've launched this a sister podcast to Cool and Unusual Punishment with Poor Man's History. That's POUR Man's History, and you can find that at nerdandtie.com/poormanshistory, or just go to nerdandtie.com, and there's a directory of all of our shows, and you can subscribe to that on any major podcast platform, and you should really check them out. Remember, you can sponsor this show financially by sponsoring an episode for only $20, or for a one-time fee of that, or if you want to support us individually, I have a Patreon at patreon.com/TRAEGORN. Nick has a Patreon at patreon.com/NickAzumi. Gen sells stuff on the internet as Ocelot Dude Designs, and it's neat stuff, isn't it, Gen?
Yep.
What you got going in the store now?
I've got more succulents, more giant 3D succulent pillows.
Yeah, they're neat. Anyways, you can also follow us on social media. We're on Twitter at Nerd and Tie, on Facebook at facebook.com/Nerd and Tie. We're on Tumblr at nerdandtie.tumblr.com, because that's how Tumblr URLs work. Just go ahead and follow us on all that social media stuff. Because in your hearts and your minds, in your thoughts, somewhere deep within you, there is a place where you feel the need to make everything brown, and you need to drown that voice and say no to your inner Snyder and say, no, I want colors, bright colors. I want an octopus playing the drums in my heart, because that dump, 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 that is the beat of 8 arms with mallets and beautiful, beautiful giant drums, and you don't want to know where the skins that made those drums came from. Because Aquaman probably talked to it first.
Drums in the deep. They are coming.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think of Ian McKellen. All right. As always, keep on spocking in the free world.
And remember, somewhere, Zack Snyder's watching you.
Oh, God.
Right now. Thanks. It's weird, man. It's weird. He should stop sniffing that sweater.